You know those large movie theater sized monitors in mission control that were used in the early 1960s? What if I were to tell you that those were not monitors, but merely light projection panels, and everything placed on that screen was electromechanical? Houston, we have a problem. It's time we solve this mystery on the next Vintage Retrospekt. Mission Control has fascinated us over the decades considering its base camp for which we attribute human spaceflight. Many have looked at Mission Control as the primary motivator for working at NASA. So let's talk vintage tech, and specifically the technology of the Mission Control viewing area. So if you ever watch old spaceflight videos of Mission Control, you probably wouldn't think that the lighting in there is very bright. But actually, all the lighting on the monitors are very bright to overcome the fluorescent lighting they have in the room. And in this room, they have what's called the Bat Cave that is located behind the big monitors. This room was 36 feet wide and 65 feet long, and this housed many machines to make everything happen. This would include some scribe machines, projectors, and of course the screen makeup was two 10 by 10 foot screens and one 10 by 20 foot screen, and this 10 by 20 foot screen was the middle section, and the two 10 by 10 feet sections were the left and right hand side. The magic happens with the scribe machines. These had a diamond headed serval that basically acted as a stylus, etching onto the slide. Once that slide is etched, it creates a gap so that the light can go through and shine on the screen. Each slide was made of glass and also a thin layer of metal. They were approximately 1 inch by 1 inch in length. And if there was any color that was needed, they would just simply put in a dichroic filter of the color of choice. This layer of glass was then placed in front of other necessary layers of stenciled glass as well, and they were placed in front of the projector. These slides were then arranged in such a fashion that would create an overlay system of layers, much similar to like modern programs today like Photoshop. So let's move on to how these projectors actually project the lines and images you do see on the screens. This system is built by a layering system, and this is consisting of 4 main layers. The first base layer is, just think of it as your background layer in Photoshop. Usually this layer is the map layer or the moon layer. And of course, this layer would usually use a dichroic filter of a color such as green or blue, designating certain features of the moon and so on. The second layer consisted of slides that they're more static in nature. They were pre-drawn. They were actually based on flight paths, projected flight paths of the spacecraft, not considering any different movements, orbital maneuvers, and things like that. That's where layer 3 comes in. This is where the slides get dynamically etched. You're probably asking, well, how does that happen? It just looks like the spacecraft should just move on the line like it's on rails. Well, not exactly. See, here's where the ingenious part comes in. They actually used a mainframe computer, and this was one of the computers was an IBM S360 Model 40. And these mainframe computers back in the day did all the computational data entry for spacecraft telemetry and rocket launch telemetry as well. In short, this data was sent to the Batcave to feed real-time telemetry data into the scribe machines. And again, these scribe machines would then etch the slide exactly how the data came in. The whole system was genius. It was basically based on layering, much like what we are familiar these days with Photoshop and also video editors. So moving back to where we were in the layering, layer 3 used a real-time plotter and etched the trajectory based on what the computer fed it. And last but not least, the final layer. This layer used spacecraft icons to actually show on the trajectory path where the spacecraft should be. I want to specifically talk about the 1960 and 1965 version of this mission control. And this mission control controlled all the Atlas Mercury, the Mercury Redstone, and the first 3 Gemini missions. Now, in case you're wondering about the unmanned Redstone rockets and the Titan rockets, this was actually used at the blockhouses at the Cape. In an upcoming episode, we will be actually covering these. I would like to take this moment to thank all my subscribers, and if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the like button. And don't forget to subscribe, because I'm always going to be making new content. And remember the importance of subscribing. This keeps the video up on the top of the feed so that other people can find this video as well. Otherwise, they're not going to find content like this, and they were going to have trouble searching for awesome stuff about mission control in the 1960s. I am your host, Chad, and I will see you out on the launch pad.